Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020 or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. Would the offensive explosion come any other way for the Rays? It is a good evening to you, and how you be. William Haynes here, you there, here on this Friday night at 10:44. This Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show live from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. We do have a W back in the books as the Rays get back in the win column with an 8-2 victory over the New York Yankees. It was Michael Wacha spinning a gem, 1 hit, no runs over 6 innings, and the bullpen going the rest of the way. Finally, some bullpen innings in garbage time on the right side of garbage time. We had the lead, it was 8-0, and Trevor Richards came in and gave up a couple runs, and Strickland with an emphatic ninth, and the Yankees do what they continue to do against the Rays. They try and outsmart the smartest team in baseball. The whole opener thing completely backfires. Nick Nelson gives up 2 runs in the first inning, and of course the Rays never look back. Going into tonight, the Rays were 5-2 this season when they had taken the lead first, and they were 0-6 when the other team had taken the first lead. So as always, that seems to be the formula for winning, and I want to let each and every one of you know now that if you'd like to call the show, you'd like to take your victory lap, over the New York Yankees, you can certainly do that. Number to call, 877-566-1020, and you can also tweet the show at WHBC Official, and we'll read your tweet on the air, all those things. I know this was a win right now, especially coming off a 3-game losing streak, is always big, but it almost feels like wins against the Yankees, maybe especially in the Bronx, they feel like they almost count as 2 wins. And I think that's kind of, I'm sure probably the players, the coaches would say sort of a similar thing, to get those high fives and handshakes in New York City over what I would consider right now their biggest rival. Of course, the beanball battle going back and forth. Some really strange narratives going into tonight's game. I know Aaron Judge had said that the tensions were high on both sides, which to me, I don't get that part of it, because if the Yankees don't want high tensions, then maybe they should stop throwing at Rays batters. As far as, I guess, the Rays-Yankees shenanigans total goes tonight, it was Brandon Lau hit by a pitch in the 3rd inning to lead off the inning. To me, was probably not intentional. It was just a slider that ran up and into the left-hander Lau, and that was Michael King, and he was just trying to get their innings. I'm not sure that really counts. We're talking beanball, but of course the Yankees are always salty about the Rays pitching up and inside, which they do to DJ LeMahieu. And by the way, not to bury the lead, I almost let off the show with this. DJ LeMahieu's 23-game hitting streak against the Rays comes to a close tonight as he goes 0 for 4 with a strikeout, which I could not believe was the longest hit streak of any Yankee against the Rays in history. Not Jeter, not A-Rod, not Judge, not Stanton, but it was DJ LeMahieu, and that included the postseason as well. Had hits, I'm sure, in all 5 of those American League Division Series games. So to finally have him hitless and to do it in the Bronx, no less, good feelings all around. Bally Sports Sun put up a graphic tonight right after the loud hit by pitch. I guess they were kind of geared up for this. Since 2018, the total hit by pitches, since 2018, so we're talking basically 3 years and into this 4th year, the Rays have hit 16 Yankee batters. Over that same stretch, the Yankees have hit 25 Ray batters. So 25 to 16 hit by pitches in favor, if you can even call it in favor, for the New York Yankees. So the Yankees want to moan and groan and all that nonsense. They can continue to do so, but as far as I'm concerned, they're the ones that continue to initiate this. So it's up to them really to put it to an end. The Rays typically don't engage in this kind of thing. Usually, instead of beanball, they'll just beat you on the field and they'll let that speak for themselves. Of course, the Yankees have not been able to do that against the Rays in quite some time, as I believe the Rays are something crazy like, 18 and 5 or something like that since the end of 2019 against the Yankees. A really nice stretch going against New York, and the dominance kind of continues. I think really the whole team played as well as they could have for the circumstances that we're dealing with, and what I mean by that is just the offensive struggles. The offensive struggles continue with runners in scoring position. They go 3 for 15 in that department tonight and leave a total of 11 base runners. So still a lot of work to be done. I think ultimately you look at that and it's a good thing, because if they score 8 runs with those stats, imagine if they're cashing in and they're not leaving as many men on the base path. I mean, we're talking 10, 15 runs tonight. Who knows exactly? And the rest of the weekend series is set up, I think, rather nicely. It'll be Tyler Glasnow going up against Jordan Montgomery. Glasnow, who is looking like he's front runner for the American League Cy Young, if it's even not too early to say that. And Jordan Montgomery, a guy that the Rays have certainly gotten to in the past. And then you'll have an interesting Garrett Cole against Ryan Yarbrough matchup on Sunday. But of course, tonight we have the win to discuss. And unlike last night, we'll tend to maybe linger a little bit more on the game because there are better things to say. So with that being said, just wanted to let you know, if you're listening, you'd like to call in, again, take your victory lap, celebrate everything. It is always great to beat the New York Yankees. But yes, number to call, 877-566-1020 is your number to call. We'll take a short break, allow some calls to roll in. We have a line open. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBC Official. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Speaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
HBC. And at 10:52, we are back on the William Haynes Show. I think the link to the show just went live on the Rays Reddit, r/Tampa Bay Rays baseball or something like that. Shout out to Dirty D if you're listening. I know he's got to go in and approve that link for me because for whatever reason, I guess Reddit, they blocked the link to my show via Spreaker for whatever reason, so he's got to go in and approve it for me. And I think lately we've been pulling in a decent amount of listeners from the Rays Reddit page. So if anyone's just tuning in, I'd like to welcome you to the program and let you know that you can call the show and share your thoughts, talk with me on the air live, all that good stuff that I'm sure you would love to do. And all you have to do is pick up your phone and dial 877-566-1020. We have a line open. We would love to speak to you. If that's not going to be the case, we will continue to discuss tonight's Rays 8-2 win over the New York Yankees. So for the Rays, it was 8 runs on 11 hits, no errors for them. And boy, speaking of errors, the New York Yankees, 2 runs on 3 hits and 3 errors for them defensively. I think 2 of them came from Rougned Odor, and we'll get to the other one a little later as we talk about the moments in which this game progressed and broke down. The Yankees, by the way, there was multiple things that definitely could have led off this show with, but the Yankees did not get a man into scoring position all night long, and that includes, of course, the 6 spectacular innings from Michael Wacha, where he allowed just 1 hit and 2 walks and struck out 9, which was 1 short, I think, of his career high, which was 10. So he was not able to reach that mark, but gets his first win as a member of an American League team, and, of course, his first win in a Rays uniform, so he's now 1-1 on the season, and obviously his best start of the year, as the last 2 times out, of course, the weird start in Fenway, and then came behind Honeywell against the Yankees in the Trop, and had a 3-run inning in the first inning that he was on the mound, and then settled down, I think, for the other 2 or 3 innings that he was on the field. But tonight, there was no such thing. I mean, 1, 2, 3 in the first, and then there was only a couple of times where he allowed a base runner, but there was multiple 1, 2, 3 innings. The first, the third, and the fifth, and then he faced the minimum in the sixth that was a leadoff walk and then got a double play ball. So it wasn't even all that close, as far as the Yankees being able to get any kind of opportunity off of Michael Wacha. 93 pitches, 60 for strikes. He was 12 for 20 in establishing the first pitch strike, which that's not great, but I think he did it, I think, in the right spots, and obviously the 2 walks, that's where it kind of got away from him. But a new pitching approach, I think, for him as a Ray. It seems like right now he's throwing his changeup and fastball about 50% of the time combined, and then the other 50% he's throwing cutters. Last year, I think, with the Mets and previously with the Cardinals, he was more fastball heavy, but as the Rays have been prone to do when they bring in some of these new guys, they see a pitch in these guys that they like, and they say, hey, this is a good pitch, you need to trust this pitch and use it more often. And Michael Wacha has certainly leaned into that with the cutter, and it was a spectacular pitch tonight. It can have slider action when he wants it to, but Yankee pitchers were chasing him all over the place. There was some good manipulation of the zone. Thankfully, home plate umpire Jerry Lane called a little bit better of a game compared to last night's home plate Marty Foster. And I know we're putting that Rangers series to bed, I know, but let me just say this about that game last night. I saw the umpire scorecard. I think they're on Twitter, everywhere on social media. They rate home plate umpires and their performance. The way he was calling balls and strikes was worth almost a full run in the Rangers' favor. I think it was 0.89 runs. The calls that went in favor to the Rangers. I'm not sure exactly how that's calculated out, but the fact that was a game that went to extra innings and the Rays lost 6-4, and I'll just leave it at that. Just say that. So a good thing that Jerry Lane was calling a little bit better balls and strikes and was certainly working for Michael Wacha. The changeup was really nice as well. So I think this was the first time where everything really came together for him. I mentioned this when the Rays starters were making their first way through the rotation and did not look so good. You could tell that they weren't necessarily at their best, and I said, look, let's give this some time. These guys are obviously going to improve. There's no way the Rays would have brought them in if they were, just 4-inning, 5-run type guys, and I don't think any of these are, save for maybe Rich Hill once every 3 starts or so, because I think he's got a pretty defined ceiling. But the rest of the guys, Waka, he's still 29 years old and trying to get his career back on track. And we do have a caller right now. We're going to go to the phones. And we have Patrick calling from Orlando. Patrick, I'm glad we could get you back. How's it going tonight?
Get me back? I haven't called you ever before. What are you talking about?
You called in a couple nights ago, and the line cut out. We were able to get you back, so I appreciate you calling in again.
My bad. Well, I'm watching the Dodgers and Padres. What are you doing?
Just talking Rays, man. Another Rays win. Getting back in the win column.
Well, this is part of it, right? Like the West Coast teams, that's what we do. And I hope we get there, and I hope that we have the chance to play them.
You think it's going to be the Dodgers or the Padres that come out of that division out west?
Out west? That division? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure. It'll be the Dodgers. And then the Padres will fight and whatever. I don't know.
So
these are the teams out west that are fun to watch. They're who I enjoy watching play baseball, I guess. Does that make sense? Oh, no.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, absolutely. And I think those are two of the more interesting teams in baseball. The Dodgers are completely stacked, and the Padres went hyper-aggressive in the offseason, making all kinds of crazy additions. I think that's one of the coolest rivalries going right now.
They are, and that's what – no matter what, Yankees, Red Sox, and we get in there some – we sneak our way in there sometimes, but – it's important for baseball to be important, to have a thing, to be important. And it's huge, I think, for the Padres and the Dodgers to play well, to be important. As much as I hate losing to the fucking Dodgers, but, whatever.
Yeah,
I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely, yeah. Certainly with the year that that Major League Baseball had last year on the money side and everything, I think baseball is a sport that's maybe in decline to compare to some others, and I think what you mentioned, that kind of competitiveness throughout the league, that's certainly a good thing.
I would argue the opposite. I would say that baseball did better than anybody else. I would say that. I would honestly say that. The NBA was garbage. Bro, I saw what they did, the product that they put out, the Orlando thing, whatever. I think it was garbage. And the NHL did what they did up in Toronto, but baseball went out and they played their game like they always do. And I honestly think, other than Toronto, it was great. I think it was amazing. And I think they always do that. Baseball plays to their fans. Baseball plays to their people. And they will always. And it's the great American sport. You know what? Whatever. You want to call me ridiculous and whatever, but whatever.
No, I think there is really
baseball.
Good. Go ahead.
No, please, no. I'm saying baseball needs us. We need people. That's all.
Absolutely. I think you're right, and there's a lot to what you're saying. I mean, you go back as far as the Great Depression, World War II, baseball has been a part of the American fabric as far as this country has been around, and I think so important that they were able to play games last year, and they were in their home ballparks. Of course, you know, they went with the bubble in the postseason, but that was just
and
at
they
the
pushed
end.
it, and They continued to try no matter what. No matter what. I think college basketball did it too, where they were like, well, we're going to force it. But baseball, they forced it, and they kept pushing it, like USC did with Dana White and his retarded ass. But, I mean, like, they kept pushing it, and I think that's important. I think a lot of other sports didn't do that, and I think baseball did, and I think it's important. I think it says a lot about us, well, whatever. I think it is.
And I think the most important thing is that baseball made it out to the other side. I think they're really clear of this. It looks like as the summer progresses, there will be more and more fans coming back in. So I think we're really close to, I think, MLB being what it was a couple of years ago. We're almost all the way back.
And they should. I'm sorry. I mean, whatever, but they should. It's a part of our fabric. No, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to go all crazy about the fabric of our humanity and whatever. But it's a part of us and like in what we do. It's humanity and how we go about life and whatever. I think it's huge and like we can miss some games from basketball. Like that's no big deal. Like I can it won't fuck me up, but to miss an entire seasons of baseball, I think that's wrong. And I think it can be helped, and I hope that they do. I hope they do. Like Toronto. And I love that Toronto is getting played down here. And it makes me happy. It was in Orlando, like my hometown. Like they were playing. I'm cool with it, but you know, I don't know what to do, and nobody else does. And I think it's not an American life when baseball is not present. I really don't. I don't think it is.
There's definitely a point to what you're saying. I appreciate you giving us the call tonight, Patrick. Thanks for the time, and have a good night. Thanks for the call. All right, and there he goes. Patrick, again, if you're listening to this, I want to thank you for listening to the program. I want to thank you for calling in and sharing your thoughts. It's certainly, you are on the record, you are heard, and I think you made some good points. And anyone else listening, you like to call in, talk maybe more Ray specific, but any sports thoughts I suppose you have on your mind. 877-566-1020 is your number to call as we continue to talk about tonight's Rays win, and they get back in the win column. Do the Rays? They are improved 2 games under 500 to 6 wins and 8 losses, and they drop the Yankees to 5 wins and 8 losses, and the Yankees are certainly going through some struggles of their own. I was just seeing just on Twitter some of the stuff that the Yankees would tweet and all the fans' responses to it. I think the responses to Topkin on Twitter for us are bad, but if you're ever down on the Rays and you think maybe things are going in the wrong direction, do yourself a favor and just read stuff that Yankee fans say. And I know on the Rays Discord right now, there's some things to that effect and kind of mocking the panic and whatnot amongst the Yankee fan base as we're only 13, 14 games into the season. But you know, obviously it's still early. There's a lot of games left to be played. And the Rays inching a little bit closer back to 500. So at this point, what I want to do, because we're about 25, 30 minutes into the program, let's take another break here, allow maybe some phone calls more to roll in if there are any people that would like to make calls. 877-566-1020. We'll be back in just a minute.
Hey Rays fans, William will be right back. We're in a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us internationally toll-free at 877-566-1020 or tweet us your thoughts at WHBC Official. Also, we'd like you to stay tuned for William's other podcasting projects at speaker.com/user/WHBC.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 11:08, we return on the William Haynes Show, continuing our discussion of tonight's 8-2 win over the Yankees. Again, just one more time, number to call 877-566-1020. So now we'll get into the nitty-gritty. We already discussed Michael Wacha's performance, and it was tremendous, and we'll get to the relievers after the lineup and all those things. So the lineup that the Cash trotted out here, he's been mixing some things up, and the way it was, we'll start defensively first. In the outfield from left to right, it was Meadows in left, Margot in center, it was Arozarena in right, and then in the infield from third to first, Wendell at third base, it was Willie Adames at short, Mike Brasso at second, Yandy Diaz at first, Mike Zunino did the catching, and Brandon Lau tonight was the designated hitter. So, again, very different than what we've seen, I think, in the past. Meadows continues to lead off, which I think is ultimately a good thing. And, we'll talk about him in a second. I'm all over the place. Brandon Lau, I think this is maybe the first time of the season that the Rays have DH'd him. He's been just their everyday second baseman. And, of course, the team is in a 30 games and 31-day stretch. So you need to be careful with how you're monitoring guys. We saw Willie Adames get a day off last night, and he came in as a pinch hitter, so he got one at-bat, and that was that. So Brandon Lau got what the Rays basically call a half day off, so he doesn't have to play the field and the wear and tear out there. And by the way, it was probably about 45 degrees up in the Bronx tonight, and it was raining all day, and it was still a little damp on the field, so definitely a good opportunity to get your infield, your middle infield cornerstone, I guess, if you will, out of there at second base. And what that also allows you to do is insert Mike Brasso at second base, who was absolutely on fire last night, getting a double and a home run in his first two at-bats and one of his only starts of the season. So he gets his second straight start. And, of course, in Yankee Stadium, we had no doubt that Kevin Cash would put Mike Brasso out there, because how could you not? He struck out in his first two at-bats, but did end up with an RBI double, which, by the way, was his third double of the season. So that's all good from that perspective. Adames back on defense, Wendell at third as usual, Diaz at first base I think is going to be the new norm as Yoshi Tsutsugo begins to slowly get phased out. We're in this strange middle period where we're still probably 4 or 5 weeks away from the return of Ji-Man Choi, maybe even a little less than that. But I don't think you can continue to play Yoshi at first base, and Yandy is playing just fine over there defensively and is also a much better offensive player. So I think the lineup that you saw tonight, save for, Lau will be at second, obviously. But I think this is the way it's going to be. It's going to be tough to get Brasso in there. Obviously, there's a reason why he wasn't starting a lot of these games before. Not because he's not a good player, because he definitely is on both sides of the ball. But just that, I would say Wendell has a little bit of an edge over him at third base. Diaz, I think, might even be a little bit better offensively at times, and they're both right-handers, so you can't really platoon them. And Brasso is not really going to be playing a whole ton of shortstop, it doesn't seem, and unless you want to put him in the corners, outfields, which is definitely not his spot. He could do it, but it's not something that you would want to have to lean on. So that would be the one thing. Maybe they get creative with the DH, and I think any night that Brasso is in the starting lineup, they're not going to be able to use the DH on Austin Meadows, which you don't really want him in the field a ton. But he did play left tonight, and there was no, I guess, major miscues out there. So that, because typically you would want to use your DH on Meadows, but if you're going to have those, 5 infielders, basically Diaz, Wendell, Adames, Brasso, and Lau, you're going to have to DH one of them, and that's what the Rays did tonight. Now, the lineup, the way it was structured, Austin Meadows led off, followed by Arozarena and Lau. Yandy Diaz, the cleanup hitter, followed by Wendell and Margot. And a bottom 3 hitters, the 7-8-9 men, being Brasso, Adames, and Zunino. And I would say just about everyone tonight was contributing in pretty big fashion. Every player that started in the lineup, so I'm not including the pinch hitter. Actually, there was no one who got a pinch hit at bat. I don't believe it was just Brett Phillips who came in as a defensive replacement. So everyone that started tonight in the lineup got a hit except for Austin Meadows, and we'll start with Meadows now. He was 0 for 3, but with 3 walks, 2 strikeouts for him. His batting average is down to 220 as that continues to fall, but funny enough, as the average continues to drop, the on-base percentage continues to go up, and the on-base is now up to 381. He's getting walked a ton. He's working his bases. I'm impressed with the little bit more patient approach at the plate for Meadows. I think it's working in his favor, especially if he's going to be the main leadoff hitter in this lineup. And he worked a tremendous leadoff walk to start the game and what allowed a nice little run against the Yankees opener, Nick Nelson. It was a pretty easy at-bat for him. He was just getting a full helping of fastballs, saw 6 of them in the at-bat, and obviously was ultimately able to work his walk. And looks like maybe a favorable call or two from Jerry Lane in favor of the Rays, but after the night that we had last night with the umpires, I think you'll just take it. And then came up in some pretty big spots as well, and not coming through necessarily with the hit. And Meadows had an RBI single last night, and we mentioned maybe that's the breakthrough from him. I don't know. I mean, I'm okay. If he's going to walk 3 times, I don't care if he's 0 for 3, to be quite frank with you, because that's what I want my leadoff hitter to be. I just need him to be getting on base. If you want guys to knock in runs, that's why you have Arozarena, Yandy Diaz, and Brandon Lau at the top of that order, and that's kind of their job. And Yandy has not been tremendous at the plate. Did get a couple of hits tonight. Would like to see him move the baseball a little bit more. I mean, I know he 2 hits, but has been walking more than anything else. But with Meadows, that leadoff walk in the first inning, struck out with a man on first in the second, walked again in the fourth with 2 outs and the bases empty to start a little run there. They load the bases with walks and they don't end up getting any runs out of it. Then in the 5th inning, he works a walk in kind of another walk party, as we mentioned last night. The spot was with men on first and second, and it was 1 out. So he walked to load the bases, and that was a really nice at-bat for him. He saw 7 total pitches, and he worked a full count in the first 4 plate appearances, which to me is tremendous. I think he saw like a total of like 25, 30 pitches in those 4 plate appearances, multiple 7, 8 pitch at-bats. So really like the performance that Meadows put out there tonight. While I would like to give him all the credit, I think some of that falls on the Yankees pitching and their ability or inability to throw strikes, let's say. There was 184 pitches total thrown from Yankees hurlers, and only 105 of them over for strikes, and of course that includes foul balls and all those things as well. They were certainly not hammering the zone. But like I always say, you can only beat the man in front of you. You can only take what's given to you. So I'm not going to complain. If they're going to give you walks, you need to take them. And the Rays lineup as a whole did that effectively with 7 total base on balls worked. And I would say only 11 strikeouts. 10 is not quite where you want to be, 10 or 11. But when you're working 7 walks, that's fine. The walk to strikeout ratio is almost 50-50, let's say. And obviously the hits in big moments still leave some to be desired. But you get 8 runs tonight is not the night necessarily to complain about that, I would say. And then after that, for Brandon Lau, came up in a big spot, I think kind of in the 6th inning. The score was relatively, it was 8-0 at that point, but he did come up with men at second and third, and 2 out, so he could have made it 10-0, but he flew out to center. It was a slider low and away from Meadows, and he just flew out to center. I guess ESPN is calling it a line out, and that's a problem that I think Meadows has had a little bit difficulty squaring up the baseball. We know that his pitch to hit is the slider down and in. He got a fair amount of those, obviously, with all the pitches that he was seeing at the plate. Fouled a lot of them off, was making some outs on some of them. And that's, I've been hammering this point a lot recently, but a lot of guys are getting their pitch. Meadows, slider down and in. The Randy Arozarena fastball. Anything, you name it. Guys are getting their pitch. Every guy has one. But most of these guys just aren't necessarily converting on them, or at least not as much as they should be. So that to me is probably one of the main things that's holding this lineup back and maybe holding the team back as a whole. And I think that's just one of those things. I think when you talk about guys that are on hot streaks or cold streaks, I think the main reason for that is just, are they converting on their pitches or are they not? It's not like a major thing where they're just falling apart as a baseball player. Obviously, these guys are professionals, but sometimes you convert and sometimes you don't. So right now, a lot of these guys aren't, but credit for Meadows for working a lot of walks. And I think when he can start converting on those sliders low and away, maybe, and start punishing those pitches a little more. I know he's already got 3 home runs, and, well, he's now being taken over by a lot of guys. Like Ronald Acuna Jr. already has 7 for the Braves and like 14 extra base hits in 14 games for Atlanta, which is completely absurd, and I'm sure he's on track for the 40-40 or 50-50 season. But anyway, would like to see Meadows maybe do a little bit better in that regard. But does work 3 walks and 6 total plate appearances. You take that, and then struck out in the 9th inning in a 1-2-3. Not concerned about that at all. I mean, it's an 8-0 game. At a certain point, it really doesn't matter, and that you're really just looking too far into it. So overall, a pretty good game for Meadows, I would say. Batting in the number 2 spot, it was Randy Arozarena, and he gets a hit tonight, goes 1 for 4 with a run scored and a run knocked in, and does work his walk as well. His average is, I guess you'd say, down to 264, an on base of 339, so he's still one of the better contributors in this Rays lineup. He hit a double to start the game in the 1st inning. So that was with Meadows at first, mind you. Hits the double, so it was runners at 2nd and 3rd with nobody out immediately to start the game. It was just a hot shot down the left field line, just fair of the third base bag, and it rolls all the way down to the wall. And, of course, Clint Frazier, with the defensive prowess that he has, had a little bit of difficulty digging that out of the wall, and so he's able to get in safe with a double to put a couple men in scoring position. So him coming up in a big situation often and early is what you like to see, and he was driven in by the Brandon Lau double that followed. So that was where pretty much all of his action came from. And I guess the rest of the night did leave a little bit to be desired. Grounded out to end the 2nd inning with the man on. He did walk in that 3 straight walks to load the bases in the 4th inning with 2 outs, where they were not able to do anything with that. Did strike out in the 5th inning with a lot of base runners on. In fact, it was okay. So that was the error on Rougned Odor. So to give you the situation for that Arozarena at bat, it was bases loaded with 1 out, and he had a soft ground ball that looked like it was going to be a double play. So the Yankees get the force at second to get Lau out for out number 1, and then the throw to first from Odor was wide. It completely missed the first baseman, LeMahieu, and the throw gets away. So Arozarena is safe at first base, and it allows 2 runs to score. It was, I think, Adames and Zunino to score in that play. So essentially really was a double play ball. He did get a run batted in. Credit to his name on that one. So there you go for Arozarena. But If that was a straight up double play, that would have been a little bit different. The Rays already had 2 runs in that inning, so not a total disaster. But with their struggles they had anyway with runners in scoring position and leaving men on base, that would have just been, as Dave Wills likes to say, a little more chicken left on the bone. And then in his other at bats, he got just one more on the night. It was just a ground out to start the 7th inning, and then he came out in the 8th inning. Brett Phillips came in. I was a little bit confused. I think as early as, say the 7th inning, I thought that Meadows was going to come out at left. I knew Phillips was going to come in some sort as a defensive replacement. I guess it doesn't really matter, Meadows or Rosarena. It happened to be Randy that came out, so I guess that's not really a big deal. But he could have done it, maybe an inning earlier, but I think that's really just nitpicking at that point. So a fine game for Rosarena. Got lucky there on that fielder's choice with not being a double play, and did add an extra base hit, the second double to his name. So at this point, he has 2 doubles and 2 home runs, so 4 total extra base hits in the team's first 14 games. So not bad, but would love to see him just get heated up a little more. Not quite white hot like he was in 2020 in the postseason per se, but a little bit better. But I think he's still off to a fairly decent start. Batting third tonight, Brandon Lau, the DH. He was 1 for 3 with 2 total runs batted in, a walk, a strikeout. His average right now is at 191. Has really been going through some struggles here early. Difficulty squaring up some pitches. Had his first home run a couple nights ago, and I think has been struggling even since then to get back on track. An on-base percentage of .333, so he's still getting walked a pretty fair share of times, which I guess is a good thing. A guy that I would like to be kind of the everyday cleanup man. He's been in the 3 spot, I think, the last 2 or 3 days, so I don't know if that's the direction that the Rays want to go in with Lau at the 3 spot and Diaz cleaning up. Like I've always said, it's not that much of a difference, honestly. His big spot came in the first inning with men at second and third and nobody out, and by golly, the Rays come through. Brandon Lau with a 2 RBI double. That was his 3rd double of the year, so his 4th extra base hit as well. Was down 0-2, and if you watched the last couple of games, 0-2 has some significance to it. It seems like all the big hits come on an 0-2 count. Was getting all fastballs from Nelson, and I'm not going to say that I feel for Nelson because that's the Yankees and that's them, but a tough game for Nelson, just trying to get settled in as the opener. He's just pumping fastballs, and 3 straight men reach base to start off the game, so rough little outing for him there. And again, the opener once again blowing up for the Yankees. And so he got his fastball, did Lau, after taking a couple for strikes, swinging at one and looking at the other, and then finally goes for it on an 0-2 and gets an extra base hit. So good on Lau for that, and that's where his 2 runs batted in came from, and that's where his 1 hit came from. So let's now look at his other spots that obviously aren't going to be quite as good. Got hit by a pitch to start off the 3rd inning, and again, that was the slider that ran up and into him for Michael King. I don't think it was an intentional hit by pitch, but when it comes from the Yankees, who knows at this point. It seems like if anyone was going to be hit, it was going to be Meadows, just because he got hit by so many darn pitches over that weekend series. But thankfully, Meadows was not hit by a pitch again, because who knows how many more of those he can take. I mean, how many can a man take? Who knows? So he got hit by the pitch to start the 3rd, then walked to load the bases in the 4th, struck out with, I want to say bases loaded in the 5th. Let me just verify that to make sure. That was right after the Rosarena double play, not actually double play. And it was actually just a man at first, so not a huge spot for him there, but it was another 3-pitch at bat and just struck out. So there are certainly still some struggles there for Brandon. After that, just one more at bat, popped up in a 1-2-3 in the 7th inning. And that was Lau's night. So he loved to see him come through there early, and did not really have a big spot after that. So I think in that regard, it's not a big deal. Yandy Diaz in the cleanup spot tonight, 2 for 5. His average right now is up to 286 and on base of 423. He's getting on base more often than any other player in tonight's lineup, at least. the only guy with an on-base over 400. In fact, the next closest looks like it would be Meadows with a 381 on-base percentage. So Yandy Diaz, not your typical cleanup guy, at least not right now. We're not seeing that the power hitting that we used to see, say back to 2019. But he's still getting on base a ton. No walks tonight, which was a little bit rare, but still with the 2 hits, so 2 for 5 total for him on the night. He grounded out in the first inning with Lau on second and basically moved him over, so not a sacrifice per se, but did get him 90 feet closer, so he did put the ball in play. Credit to him, certainly. With Brandon Lau on first after the hit by pitch in the third, he singled, which allowed Lau to get all the way over to third base, so it was set up a runners in the corner situation for Joey Wendell, and of course they don't convert because why would they with runners on the corners and no outs? But after that, he came up with the bases loaded in the fourth, of course the 2 outs, and then the 3 straight walks, and just grounded out. So that was a spot where he certainly could have driven in a couple of runs and just didn't come through. Hit a leadoff single in the 6th to get that 2-run inning started in the 6th inning, and then grounded out to end the 7th with nobody on. So a fine night for Diaz. He did definitely miss his spot. He went 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position total, but did put the ball in play both times, so I guess you give him credit for that. He does not tend to strike out in a lot of big spots and did not strike out at all in his 5 at-bats tonight, so I suppose good on him for that. Batting 5th tonight, and it looks like maybe he's back on track. Joey Wendell, 3 for 5 with 2 runs scored, no walks, 2 strikeouts. His average is up to 326, so he's still doing really, really good and on base at 341. So from those numbers, you can tell he's not walking a whole heck of a lot. But it's okay when he's putting the ball in play and getting some singles and things. It was 3 singles. He struck out in his first 2 at-bats. He had Brandon Lau at third with 1 out in the first. So that's a sacrifice situation and just was not able to put the ball in play. Let's take a look at that at bat because I have a feeling I know kind of what he was seeing there. So started off 1-2 with a curveball. So he chased the curveball down and in, which is his kryptonite. Then took a fastball on the other corner. So he's down 1-2. Then took a slider high and away for ball 2, 2-2. Then took a fastball well inside that was an easy take. And then in the same spot, but a different pitch, 10 miles an hour less, the slider down and in again. And it was really easy to take. I mean, they were saying on the radio broadcast that it's hard to lay off, when you're in the batter's box. And again, I've never taken a major league plate appearance, so I can't really say with absolute certainty. But by the time he even decided to swing, that pitch was already in the lefty batter's box. Like, it was not even close to home plate by the time he even begun to get the bat around. And the reason why that's such a big deal is just because it came with a runner at third and less than 2 outs. So all you got to do is move the baseball, and at a full count, I hate to strike out on that pitch. He could have just walked, and then it was Margot and Brasso coming up after him. So the last few days, he's really struggled with that pitch down and in. That's really been his weakness his whole time as a Ray. I know I just mentioned he's got, right now, the best batting average on the team at 326. So, he's still hitting very well, but that's definitely the one thing that he could do to improve right now. And then with men at the corners and nobody out in the third, he struck out again, and it was kind of the same thing as I'm looking there. So he did have another full count, and it wasn't quite the same. It wasn't a pitch like down and in crazy. It was a cutter that kind of ran into him a little bit and just swung through it. So was not just able to barrel it up, but it was in the zone. If he had taken that on 3-2, I'm pretty confident Jerry Lane would have rang him up. So did make an effort there, so that's good, I guess. But did strike out. So that was the second straight time that he struck out with a man at third base and less than 2 outs. So that is a big concern. He goes 0 for 2 tonight with runners in scoring position, of course. But then his next 3 at-bats got singles, so I guess he's back in the good graces, right? A leadoff single in the 5th, a single with 1 man on in the 6th to move him over a base, and that was they had like 3 straight bloop singles, which was just really odd, right? And then hit a single to lead off the 8th inning and was retired on a double play ball. But good on him for getting a base hit. He's been doing great getting the ground balls through the infield. I think that's where most of his success has come from. So didn't come through in the big spots, but did give the Rays a base runner 3 times later in the game. So and played a good third base as always. Batting in the 6th spot, it was Margot in center field, 1 for 4 with a run scored and a walk. 1 strikeout as well. An average is down to 282. So still very good for him. One of the better performing offensive pieces as the Rays have right now. An on base of 349, so good in that category as well, which is good to see, certainly. And I think that's an interesting place in the lineup to have him because it seems like he's always coming up in pretty big spots. He was 1 for 2 with runners in scoring position tonight. So he walked with a man at third and 2 outs. That set up runners at the corner, so they gave him the walk, so he had to take the base. Good on him for that. Lined out to the second baseman with runners at the corners, I believe, or it was either that or I think first and second, and just 1 out. So it was a liner, so not bad, but just unlucky, I guess, there catching a bad break. He struck out with a man on first in the 5th. Hit a single with a couple of men on. It was just kind of a blue pit, so he wasn't able to bring anyone around, but did keep the chain moving, so that was good to see, and then grounded into a double play ball in the 8th inning. So overall, not a bad game for Margot, and he played center for 7 innings, and then moved over to play right for the last 2 innings. Batting, and let me just say that, because I think it was right about the 7th or 8th inning. I've been meaning to bring this up, but I know you all saw it, where it was during Clint Frazier's at bat in the 8th, and all of a sudden the Yankee fans in the outfield just started throwing baseballs out at the Rays in the field. I don't know if they were throwing them at the Rays. I don't know exactly why they were throwing the baseballs, but it was just really weird to see, right? I think on the radio broadcast they were saying that there might have been 25 or 30 baseballs on the field by the time all was said and done. I think the umpires called the Rays into the dugout just because I guess it's a safety issue. I don't know. It was just a really odd thing, and leave it to the Yankee fans to keep it classy as always. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that because that was the time of the game that it was going on in the 7th or 8th inning. So that was Margot's night. Brasso in the 7th spot in his first game in Yankee Stadium since, I believe, getting thrown at by Chapman. Or no, it was the next day that I think he hit the home run off of Montgomery when they kicked him out in the first inning, which was like, that's super cool, right? So the spots Brasso came up in, struck out in a big moment in the first inning. I mean, they did get 2 runs there, but definitely could have had more. They had runners at the corners with 2 outs. He gets started off 2-0, then takes a fastball for a strike, swings through a fastball for another strike, and then chases the slider away for strike 3. So a tough at-bat for him there, certainly, and left a couple of men on. Came up in another big spot and struck out. So kind of like Wendell was coming up with men on base and struck out both times. That moment in the 3rd inning, that came with a couple of men on, 2nd and 3rd, in fact, and with 2 outs. So a base hit obviously would have scored 2 runs, and they didn't come away with anything in that inning. So started off 0-2, worked himself back in, 2 balls, 2 strikes, the 6th pitch of that bat, and then just swung through a cutter a little bit low. I'm sure would have been called a strike, so he did have to go at it and just was not able to get the barrel on it. So a couple of missed opportunities for him. He finishes the night 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position. So he was the only guy that got 3 at-bats, and he was 0 for in that regard. He did hit a double with a man on first, and that actually knocked in Wendell, by the way. He goes from first to home on a double because I think he was already running on the pitch anyway. So an RBI double for Brasso there. That was his 3rd double of the year, which is good to see. And then came up in the very next inning in the 6th. Bases loaded with nobody out, and he grounded into a fielder's choice. That might have been... there were so many moments like that. I get them all confused. So grounded into a fielder's choice. They got, I believe, the runner at 2nd on the force, I believe, which was Wendell at the time. Or no, they got Yandy out at home. That's right. Yeah, but it was bases loaded with nobody out, and they just got Yandy at home on the 4, so it just kept the bases loaded there, so was not able to come through, but at least like it wasn't a double play ball. That would have been not such a good thing. I mean, and it was in a 6-0 game, so I think you could argue being a little bit hypercritical there, and then just grounded out to the pitcher in his final at-bat in the 8th when the game was well out of reach. So that was Brasso's night. Did get another extra base hit, another run batted in his Yankee Stadium 2021 debut, so good for him on that, and I think played good at second base as well. Adames in the 8th spot tonight. He was 1 for 5 with a run scored, no walks, and a strikeout. He's just under the Mendoza line at 196 and on base of 229, so that's not great either. He's not getting walked a ton. I think that's more on him. He's not working walks. It's not he's not getting walked, I think, is because the Moneyball philosophy will tell you walks is not a passive thing. Walks is something that you can actually, as the hitter, initiate, and that's definitely not Adames' game, which is fine. Not everyone is going to be like that, but is suffering as far as his stat lines is right now. So hit a leadoff single in the 2nd to get on, and that was his one hit of the night. Grounded out to start the 4th. And then reached base. He got all the way to the 2nd on an error. It went right to Gio Urshela at third base, got by him, and then trickled into shallow left field. And then no one was able to get to the ball until he got all the way to second base. And I think, I got the run in from second there from Brasso. So he did put the ball in play. I think routine and Gio Urshela has been at like a top third baseman defensively, and he was just not able to make that routine play. So he did get all the way to second, and he did come around to score, and did technically drive in a run, although it's not a run batted in. So it wasn't really on him. I mean, he did put the ball in play. It was just more on Urshela making the mistake, to be quite honest. So technically, you would say did not come through there with runners in scoring position, as he was 0 for 2 in that regard tonight. And then that second appearance with men on, it came with the bases loaded with 1 out in the 6th, and then just popped it straight up to the third baseman there. So it went to Urshela again. It was the first pitch that he saw. It was a fastball middle in, so he just jammed him there. Lucky jammed him. And again, that's 6-0 game, so not crucial. But bases loaded and 1 out. Obviously you would prefer him to come through. And of course, Zunino had a 2 RBI double right after that, so it didn't end up mattering too much. But was not able to convert there and just got jammed in on the hands. So, that happens to everyone, and then struck out for one of the outs in the 9th, where Lucky struck out the side. Not to give Yankee pitchers any credit, but just saying. And then played good defensively at shortstop. He's been good over there as well, and I guess not so much the Boston series, because that's when they were struggling defensively, but I just want to give credit because I know I had not played a whole lot of cold weather games in my career, of course, living in the Tampa Bay area, and I was a football player, so there was not any cold weather games, really. But I know, I've been outside when it's cold. I know it just makes everything difficult. So to make a long story longer, I suppose, the way that this team is playing such good defense, and that they've had to play so many games in the cold, which just makes it more difficult, I just wanted to give them a shout out for that, because it's not easy to do what they're doing as it is, and so that they're able to do it even in 45 degrees and with a damp grass out there in the Bronx, I think is a good thing to see. And then in the 9th spot, Mike Zunino, 1 for 4 with a run scored, 2 runs batted in, a walk, 2 strikeouts, batting 161, not good at all, 257 on base, not good at all, but did come through with an extra base hit. Again, it was, I'm seeing here his second double of the year, which I guess is right, so 2 doubles, 2 home runs on the year for Big Z there. He struck out with a man on first in the 2nd. He grounded out in the 4th with nobody on. He did walk in a fairly big spot in the 5th inning, that 4-run inning that was pretty big. So it was a man on second and just a 4-pitch walk. He got all 4 sliders and pretty much all in the same spot, just kind of low and away. And he's typically been good at laying off those pitches. The fastball high and away is his weakness, and I think Yankees pitching got him on that maybe a couple times with the 2 strikeouts there. So he did walk with a man on second, and then Meadows walked to load the bases there. So did get the line moving. As a 9-hitter, that's all I want to see, and he did it. In the 6th inning, he did have the 2 RBI double with men at second and third. On the first pitch, got a fastball pretty well inside. So he kind of got ran up on the hands just like Adames did. That's kind of crazy that back-to-back at-bats, the first pitch, 90-mile-an-hour fastball middle into right-handers from Lucky. Adames pops up and Zunino hits a double. So it was like the same situation. Just Zunino was able to convert. Obviously, Zunino probably a little bit stronger than Zunino. He's more of a power hitter than Adames is. So he was able to push it through for an extra base hit and drive in a couple of runs, which is good, and then struck out looking in the 9th inning. So that's all for the lineup. We got anyone listening? Just let me know if you like the way that I do this. Just trying to find a formula. Obviously, if you've been with me for a while, I did the post-game shows after pretty much every game last year, including the postseason, and pretty much the same formula. I mean, I've got the scorebook. If there was a big inning, a big moment, I can just look and talk about it. But just kind of like to go through the hitters 1 through 9 because, I mean, that's really what a post-game show is, right? I mean, you just discuss the team's performance. Just talking about the hitters and what they did. So if you have thoughts to share, please feel free to do so. And again, the team was 3 for 15 with runners in scoring position. The only men that came through, Zunino 1 for 1, Margot 1 for 2, and Lau 1 for 1. So a lot of, like I said, chicken left on the bone, as Dave Wills says. They went 5 for 31 with runners in scoring position on the Texas series, which was a 161 average, and left a total of 30 men on. And they left 11 men on tonight alone. So this issue is not going away, folks. Let's just put it that way. But sometimes I guess you're going to have to be able to win in spite of it. And I think a big reason for that, whenever you can hold the Yankees to 2 runs in Yankee Stadium, I feel very confident that you are going to win that game. And of course, tonight the Rays do exactly that. So, Michael Wacha, 6 innings. Scoreless baseball, baby. Only 3 total base runners allowed. 1 hit. Just 1 hit and just 2 walks. Did not allow a base runner to get into scoring position over his 6 innings. He just had a couple guys get on to first, and that was that. 9 strikeouts, 1 short of his career high, which was 10. Would have loved to see him be able to reach that mark, but it was just not meant to be tonight. 93 pitches, which was a season high, so obviously you didn't want to stretch that to 7 innings, and in that situation you didn't have to. There's a reason why they went to Trevor Richards, of course. His earned run average is down to 4.2, which is fine. A 4 ERA I think would be considered average, so a little bit below average in that regard, but certainly his best start of the year. And I'll wear this. I was not high on Wacha coming into this game. I was concerned that this game would be potentially an issue. I did correctly predict that the Yankees were going opener, and I think I did predict Nick Nelson, if not Michael King as well. Not that it takes a genius to do this. It is just baseball at the end of the day, but always nice to give a shout out to yourself. Anyway, so Michael Wacha, an absolute gem, as baseball people would say. He did shove tonight, absolutely. 12 for 20 in establishing the first pitch strike, and again, 93 pitches, 60 for strikes. So he was pounding that strike zone, unlike the Yankees pitchers all night long. So that's good to see, and was not throwing strikes like that were right over the middle, like say he was doing in Boston. And again, the revolutionized Wacha, of course, he was going to be a different pitcher with the Rays because that's what happens every time they bring someone in. A lot more cutters instead of fastballs, typically. And the changeup was working tonight as well, which I think has turned into a pretty nice pitch. So great job for Wacha. His first win as a Ray. His first win as an American leaguer, as he was just with the Cardinals and Mets previously in his career. And he left the game leaving his team with an 8-0 lead, which is totally awesome. And then Trevor Richards came in and did what he did. I know we had a caller a couple nights ago, and rightfully so, kind of bemoaning the kind of bulk guys, and he straight up asked me, where are the bulk innings going to come from? Because these guys right now, meaning Richards, Mazza, who had just had a bad night, and McHugh as well. None of those guys, none of those three had done a good job in bulk innings. And it's kind of the same for Richards. He gives up 2 runs over 2 innings, 3 strikeouts. The 2 runs came on a 2-run shot from Giancarlo Stanton. It was a single to Torres and then the home run from Stanton. And then he got the next 3 out. So good on him for settling in. It was an 8-0 game, so it's not like he had to be perfect, and he certainly was not, but navigated the damage. As they were saying on the radio call, and this is definitely true for a guy like Richards, he was falling behind in the count as he did to Stanton. It was a 3-1 pitch that he homered off of. And a guy that like throws changeups right over the plate, yeah. I mean, if you're behind in the count, if you got guys in hitters counts and you're throwing that pitch, I mean, forget about it. And that's been the issue with Richards. I know Rays fans aren't happy with him. I'm not here to really defend him, but he's just one of those guys that is supposed to eat innings. All these guys, whether they're performing great or not, and he's got a 7.2 ERA, so he's certainly not performing well, but everyone has a role. This 60 to 162 game season, we've never seen anything like this before. So, even if he's just eating innings, as long as he's not blowing a game, like if he blew the 8-0 lead, yes, get him out, get him to Durham, DFA him, waive him, whatever. But no, that was not the case, and he did fine in the spot that he was given. I thought they would just let him go the 3 innings that they had left and just get 50 pitches. Cash cut him off at 38, so he could be, I guess, ready. Probably not Sunday, but they'll be in Kansas City against the Royals Monday through Wednesday before finally getting that Thursday off day. So I would imagine Richards was stretched out, I would guess, and maybe since he just did 50 pitches a few nights ago, maybe that was the reason why. But I'm sure he could bounce back a little quicker than normal. And I think, as Dave Wills mentioned on the call, I didn't even see it this way, but kind of a Godfather dynamic, I guess, is the way he explained it. They brought in Hunter Strickland, a guy that throws mid to high 90s, in the 9th with an 8-2 lead, so obviously like not even close to a save situation. And just a clean inning, 1-2-3, 2 strikeouts, and was pounding the strike zone. But the kind of mental aspect, I guess, of this that I think is big, because the men that came up in the 9th was Judge, Torres, and Stanton. 3 of the big guys in this order, no doubt. And if they had faced Trevor Richards, I mean, say maybe a couple of them get doubles, maybe they get another home run, maybe they carry that confidence into tomorrow and start to get back on track. Because Judge went 0 for 4, and then Stanton goes 1 for 3. Stanton 1 for 4. Torres 1 for 3. LeMahieu, by the way, also 0 for 4, but not important to the point. But to bring in Strickland and just completely overpower Judge, Torres, Stanton, that's big, I think. And that's just the Rays have been great against the Yankees in the postseason as well. So that was just one little way for Cash. I've got a whole stable of guys that throw 98 miles an hour. You'll recall the quote from last year. That was just him putting a punctuation mark on this win. I think Dave Wills was right in that regard, and credit for him, because I didn't even see it that way. And of course he's been in baseball circles a little bit longer than me, certainly. So good on him for calling that out, and I think he very accurate in that regard. And Hunter Strickland, I think, is working himself into the good graces of maybe the Rays brass, because a guy that struggled in spring training, I think a non-roster invite as well, and then just, option to the alternate site, and we'd think, okay, yeah, bye-bye, like, move on. But no, with the injury of Fairbanks, he had to come on, and not that he's going to be in the back end of this bullpen. And by the way, I mean, he was a part of, I believe, a San Francisco Giants bullpen that, he was pitching in the playoffs, so it's not like he's not been in big spots before, so I think maybe kind of an X factor. And I just reminded myself of this. The caller that we had a couple nights ago that was talking about maybe a reliever depth in the alternate side, or what will soon become AAA Durham. Stetson Alley is a guy that I wish I'd remember his name, because it's not like they have any like true kind of prospect bullpen arms. Obviously, most prospects, they tend to be starters kind of anyway if they're any good. Obviously, that's not all the time, but more times than not. But Stetson Alley, a guy who's been a two-way player his whole career, started hitting and then just casually decided, I can throw 100, so I'm going to go back through the minors as a pitcher. A really cool story. he's an X factor as well. I think this bullpen will suffer another injury at some point. We just don't know when. So Stetson Alley will come on, and Hunter Strickland coming on now, and a savvy little pickup, at least it's looking right now. Looking at Strickland, a 2.25 ERA in 3 or 4 innings of work, but still really nice. And established 2 of 3 first pitch strikes, and that's good. And by the way, Richards 4 for 8 with the first pitch strike which was kind of the issue for him. So that caps off tonight's 8-2 win. We're moving on now to tomorrow's game. It will be at 1:05 in Yankee Stadium. Hopefully a little bit more warm. Hopefully the sun's out, not as much with the rain and the clouds and everything like that. And wow, let me just say this before I forget. Just on the game preview on ESPN Gamecast, against the spread, the Rays are 0-7 this year as a favorite, which is that is incredible. I just think that's interesting. Whenever Vegas thinks they're going to win, they at least don't cover the spread, or they just lose entirely. But getting now to maybe a more relevant point, tomorrow, 1:05 Yankee Stadium for the Rays. It is the ace, as we now make our 4th time through the rotation. This cap the 3rd time through the order. So now we're going a 4th time through. Glasnow making his 4th start of the year. The 27-year-old right-hander is 1-0 on the year with an 0.46 ERA, which is, I think, the 3rd or 4th best in the AL. His last time out, pitched an absolute gem, 7 2/3, no runs, 2 hits, 1 walk, 14 strikeouts. Carried a no-hitter, I think, into the 5th inning, through 102 pitches. I think tomorrow we'll see more of his first 2 starts, which was 6 innings of maybe no runs or maybe a run. That would be big because, if the Rays win tomorrow, that's another series victory, at least, maybe even a sweep if they win Sunday over the Yankees. So that would be big. That would definitely be big for sure. I would love to see him ball out. And then for the Yankees tomorrow, it's going to be Jordan Montgomery, 1-0 with a 3.27 earned run average, is the 28-year-old left-hander. His last start was against the Rays in the Trop, I think on the Saturday game, if I'm not mistaken. 5 innings, 4 runs and 5 hits, 2 homers allowed, 2 strikeouts, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. So let's take a look now just at the guys that were maybe dominating off of him, because, of course, we have that ability with the handy-dandy scorebook. So guys that were doing well off of him. Yandy Diaz was in the leadoff spot, and again, they're going to go heavy righties against the lefty. Yandy was 1 for 3 with a walk and a single. Arozarena hit a 2-run home run off of Montgomery, and that was it against him. So Diaz was actually 1 for 2 with a walk. And then Arozarena 1 for 3 with the home run. Meadows 0 for 1, got hit by a pitch twice by Montgomery, so I don't know if we're going to see that again. Maybe they give him the day off, but I doubt it. Margot was 1 for 3 with a double. Mike Brasso was 1 for 2 with a walk. Brandon Lau was 0 for 2. Adames 0 for 2. Zanino 1 for 2 with a home run, and Padlo 0 for 2, which we won't obviously see tomorrow, as he was sent down to the alternate site when they brought, I think, Trevor Richards up, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of guys that did well. Obviously, they're going to stack righties. I would imagine kind of same lineup that maybe they go, I would say probably Brasso at third, Adames at shortstop, Lau at second base, Yandy at first, and then in the outfield they'll go, I'm sure, maybe Margot in center, Meadows in left, and probably Arozarena in right. And then as a DH, I guess there wouldn't be a whole lot of options left. That might be a day where they DH Mejia. They could do that. But outside of that, unless they want to DH Tsugo, but left on left, you wouldn't be inclined to necessarily do that anyway. So that's my thoughts for the lineup. And thanks to the blowout tonight and Richards and Strickland doing their thing, the A bullpen, everyone got a day of rest. Kittredge, Springs, Thompson, Reed, Castillo, all in one day's rest, and they'll all be ready to go. So if Glasnow can shove, he goes 6 or 7, everything is in play, you know. Springs is definitely, you know, I would say probably an A bullpen right now, and then maybe they go Kittredge and Castillo or Thompson and Castillo, whatever. Everything is in play. That caps off tonight's show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to thank Patrick, if you're still listening. Patrick, again, thank you for the call. Thank you for making it. And anyone else listening, we'd love to hear from some of you guys tomorrow. We'll be on the air after the game, so sometime in the early evening, late afternoon, and we'll be on the air after Sunday's game as well. A rare weekend show for the William Haynes Show, but happy to do it, hopefully with a couple of more wins over the New York Yankees. Good win for the Rays, and as always, we will talk to you tomorrow.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.